Hi, my name is Rachelle Smith, entrepreneur, professional speaker, and author. Last time, I kicked off this two-part series on important and the value of higher education for those of you who want to further your education. In the last episode, I highlighted for-profit colleges and universities and alluded to the fact that, I've been undercover evaluating for-profit colleges and universities that have been just floored in terms of what I've experienced, both in brick or mortar or traditional building type of for-profit colleges and universities, as well as the online schools and universities. And so folks, choose wisely. And I've just been, it's been so eye-opening. Again, I going in undercover as a prospective student, knowing in my, of course, my background is having 2 master's degrees, and knowing the higher educational system in this country very well. So it's been very eye-opening. I wanted to shift gears here in this particular episode and just highlight, again, on a broader scale. It doesn't matter if you're a freshman. It doesn't matter if you're a senior in high school, or you're a freshman in high school. Again, you're thinking about your higher educational future, and you're thinking about, different avenues and ways to make that happen. And doesn't matter, again, if you're a working adult, if you're 70, 80, 90 years old, it happens where you see these inspirational stories of people later on in life going back and achieving their educational goals. But I reiterate the point, folks, choose wisely. Choose wisely. Because, wrong choices in any aspect of life, but particularly in higher education, can be detrimental in terms of cost, time, money, it's all of that. And so choose wisely. I tell you that again. I can't emphasize that point enough. But as I reflect back on my own, and just again, going undercover in these college situations has really caused me to reflect on my own educational journey. And as I reflect and I think back to, again, the choices that I made and the decision making that went behind it and all of that, having gone to 2 traditional, larger type state schools, and then 1 private school at the end for my second graduate degree. And as I reflect back on those days, and I so remember too, and as I alluded to last time, the U.S. News and World Report is a great resource. It's a great and a wonderful resource. Again, where you're thinking about these online colleges and universities, and they rank those based on criteria and just ultimately how successful are these schools in terms of graduating and preparing students. That's truly what it's all about. Okay, and everything from size of the endowment to just all of that is included in the rankings. But that's a great starting point in terms of helping you to evaluate. But folks, and as I reflect back on my own journey, you really have to determine what's important to you. What are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? Okay, there's certain schools that are stronger for certain discipline, career areas than others. And so that's something you want to keep in mind. Geography, so your geographical preferences in terms of, perhaps you've been a snowbird your whole life, and you decide, I'm sick of this, I want to go to college in a warmer climate. Okay, then that's something that's factored into the decision. Okay, you could be a legacy student where your parents and your grandparents went to a certain college or university, and you want to continue that tradition. But what I want to do is emphasize to you that really think about what's important to you as you are evaluating colleges and universities, because that's huge. Because again, once you're so solid on the inside in terms of what you're looking for, what your goals are, and what's important to you, and what it's going to take to achieve those goals, the less susceptible you will be to any type of manipulation or any type of deceptive tactics that any person, any admissions person, may be able to throw at you to persuade you to make a choice that perhaps isn't in your best interest. Okay, so but it all starts with having a clear plan and a clear vision of where you want to be. And I think back to my own journey, and again, doing my undergraduate college and university in Louisiana, and of course you know my story. In fact, I've shared it sometime last year, and where ultimately I wanted to go to college in Puerto Rico, and I had everything all set up, everything was ready to go, and then of course I met this guy who ultimately ended up getting kicked out of the Air Force. So I was in this doomed relationship, but I actually stayed in Louisiana for that relationship. So if there's anybody that was happy that I made that decision, I'm sure my parents were, because they weren't too keen on me just being, a young person just up and moving to Puerto Rico with no connections or anything like that for college. But so I ended up going to college in Louisiana. I had a wonderful college experience in Louisiana. Yeah, took advantage of a number of leadership opportunities, which ultimately prepared me as I progressed forward throughout my college career. And so there's in terms of being an undergraduate, well, yes, I wanted to go to school, of course, in the Caribbean, but ended up staying in Louisiana. Ultimately started out, as a foreign language major. At that time, I wanted to be a linguist, and study multiple languages and work for the Foreign Service as an interpreter or translator as well. So, but then, did some of that just kind of on my own on the weekends and recognized that was not a good career path for me. And I just have too much energy and need to be out making things happen. So it wasn't a good fit. And so I changed my major to public relations and also dual majored in a foreign language. So that was a great combination, great undergraduate experience. I certainly wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. So I'm actually glad I stayed in Louisiana. And as I moved forward and I achieved my first graduate degree from FIU, and at that point I knew, again, I've always had this multicultural passion. And FIU, Florida International University in Miami, is well known, of course, on U.S. News Reports, World Reports. It's the most diverse college or university in the nation. I mean, it is wonderful. It is a wonderful hodgepodge of cultures, languages, traditions, backgrounds. I absolutely loved my time at FIU. Very traditional program where I had to write a master's thesis at the end. And I tell people, it's easy for me to write books now because of that master's thesis I had to write. Incredibly supportive faculty. I mean, they really went to bat for me in terms of scholarships and all of that. And I would just, kind of roll on campus and roll to the department, and one of them would tell me, oh, by the way, you're going to be getting XYZ scholarship or whatever, this and that. And oh, by the way, you're going to be named Graduate Student of the Year at this particular program, award ceremony on this date. So wonderful experience. I certainly wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. Then left there, moved on to Northwestern. And so there's always kind of that, perhaps could be a question of like, why 2 graduate degrees? And yes, you see it happen from time to time, but for me, it was very strategic. At that particular point in my life, I wanted to be this big marketing guru. I knew just all along, even as a little girl, I wanted to live an uncommon life, and I wanted an uncommon career. And that's one thing I tell people is that, your Northwesterns of the world, there's kind of that expectation that you're going to be uncommon, that you're going to be making a difference, that you're going to be a leader in whatever field that you're in. And so that was my mindset at the time. I enrolled in the program, had a wonderful experience. Yes, in the first quarter, which I often tell people when you're at your highly selective colleges and universities, there's a term that I came up with that I call EDP, which I call the ego deflation period. All right, that's where you go in and you have this ego coming in and you're so used to being the top dog at whatever college, university that you've been or come from, or high school if you're coming as an undergraduate. But then that ego deflation period, which happens early on, typically your first week of classes, where you recognize everybody else in this program or in this school, in this university, is just as smart as I am, and in many cases smarter than I am. So your ego takes a little hit, and then you have to readjust to that super hyper competitive environment. And as I look back, I certainly wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. And I often tell people, the private, selective, highly selective universities versus your great state schools. And people are surprised when I say this. Were my professors at Northwestern any better than my professors at FIU or in Louisiana? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I've had some wonderful professors along the way, but what your Northwestern is an example. What you're doing, and again, your Ivy League is the same thing. Okay, and I'm sure there's plenty of notable, distinguished professors in all of these types of schools. But you look at Northwestern University now with an annual tuition, the annual cost coming in. They tell the undergraduates this, of course, $70,000 a year. And you ask yourself, man, that's a lot of money. But truly, with the bottom of my heart, and I've shared this with other people, what you're buying is access. Okay, yeah, you're buying the Northwestern brand, in many cases the Harvard brand, all of these, Ivy League brand, and the Stanford brand. Yeah, so there's a lot of excellence. There's a lot of, academic achievement. You got Pulitzer Prize winners. You got Nobel, winners on faculty and all of that. So there's this wonderful, background behind the brand, but you're also in terms of connections. Okay, those professors, my professors had connections. Okay, particularly the alumni base, the alumni associations are filled and replete with alums that are leaders in their field and have connections. Okay, I reflect back on my corporate career, every single job that I had in my corporate career was because a fellow Northwestern alum referred me. Okay, and these were complete strangers that I networked with through my Northwestern Alumni Association, and met, and these folks opened doors for me. A wonderful example here, after I started my business, I had tried for 2 years to connect with someone at General Motors to make some inroads, to be able to do speaking training, all of that. And it's very tough. These huge companies, they already have relationships with vendors and service providers. But one, my fellow Northwestern alum, and she's actually featured on the winter edition of our Northwestern Alumni Magazine. General Motors Senior Vice President Alicia Voller Davis opened the door for me in 2014. Okay, and I was able to, penetrate to him and speak at an award ceremony, and I'm so grateful to her. But not just grateful to her, but to all the other Northwestern alums who've helped me, who've mentored me. Okay, but that is when I tell people, when I look back, I think back to the access and to the connections and to just this wealth of opportunities and experiences that Northwestern opened for me. Okay, and I know I could talk to some Yale graduates or Stanford graduates as well. So the same thing happens again at your great state schools, like your University of Michigan, wonderful school, wonderful network, large alumni base, same thing. But you really have to think about, what are you trying to achieve in life, and what is it going to take to get you there? Okay, like I said, my undergraduate college was a phenomenal experience, wonderful preparation, FIU, wonderful experience, wonderful preparation. But you have to think about what's important for you. Okay, if you want to be with the best of the best and you have the academic qualifications, and I tell you, yes, go Ivy League, but also in your highly selective schools in that same, tier, either within that tier or just below that tier. Don't let the cost, don't let the $70,000 a year at Northwestern scare you. Okay, these schools have massive endowments, and they have generous financial aid packages that are based on need, and that's what people don't realize. Okay, they're not going to say because your parents don't have a whole lot of money and don't make a whole lot of money that you can't get in. No, they're looking at those decisions are based on financial. What they have, a need blind policy is what it's called. Is they don't admit people because they already know they can't afford to go there. No, they admit you based on your academics. All right, your potential to succeed in the school, because ultimately a lot of colleges, except for some of your kind of scandalous for-profit colleges and universities, they all want to see you succeed. And so take a holistic view when you think about your college dreams and your goals, and think about what school is going to help you get there. Okay, think about the cost. Think about all of that. Where will you truly be happy? All right, I was happy in Louisiana. I was happy at FIU, happy at Northwestern. 3 very different and distinct universities with very different and distinct strengths, but all 3 of them helped to shape and mold me into the person I am today. And I'm a staunch advocate for higher education, and I loved college. I mentored college students for almost 16 years. I absolutely love it. But folks, I just want to encourage you, think about what's important to you, what college or university will help you get there. And if you don't know, as I stated in the last episode, ask. People ask me for many years. I was always willing to help. Education and someone wanting to pursue their education and further their education will always have my attention, no matter how busy I am. But so folks, think about what it is you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve, what it's going to take to get you there. And I promise you, if you take full responsibility for furthering your education, your goals are only that one huge step away. All right, so thanks so much for your time. Make it a wonderful